بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
Continue our recitation from Surah Al-A'raf, Surah number 7 of the Qur'an, verses 74 to 81. And it's on page number 160. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. واذكروا إذ جعلكم خلفاء من بعد عاد وبوأكم في الأرض تتخذون من سهولها قصورا وتنحتون الجبال بيوتا فاذكروا آلاء الله ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين. قال الملأ الذين استكبروا من قومه للذين استضعفوا لمن آمن منهم أتعلمون أن صالحا مرسل من ربه قالوا إنا بما أرسل به مؤمنون. قال الذين استكبروا إنا بالذي آمنتم به كافرون. فعقروا الناقة وعتوا عن أمر ربهم وقالوا يا صالح ائتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من المرسلين. فأخذتهم الرجفة فأصبحوا في دارهم جاثمين. فتولى عنهم وقال يا قوم لقد أبلغتكم رسالة ربي ونصحت لكم ولكن لا تحبون الناصحين. ولوطا إذ قال لقومه أتأتون الفاحشة ما سبقكم بها من أحد من العالمين إنكم لتأتون الرجال شهوة من دون النساء بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We're continuing with the story of Prophet Salih, and we say that when he came to his community and he brought his message to them, they had many issues of immorality within their community, and in addition to that, they used to worship idols. In addition to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they used to ascribe partners to God. And Prophet Salih said to them that I have brought to you a camel, and as we saw in the verse of the Qur'an, it said Naqatullah, the she, a female camel, but this one is ascribed to God. Meaning what? Meaning that this is a miraculous camel. And in the ahadith we're told how it was a miracle in its size, for example, and some of the things that it used to do. And all that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking from you is that you do not disturb this camel. You do not harm or injure this camel. And as long as you don't do that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to be punishing you. So what did they do then? And the verses now continue to describe how they responded to Prophet Salih. وَاذْكُرُوا إِذْ جَعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ مِنْ بَعْدِ عَادٍ. So Prophet Salih is reminding them, in addition to what I have told you already, remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made you a civilization that came after the civilization of Ad. He let you inherit the earth and rule over the earth after the community of Ad. And we spoke about the community of Ad before the community of Prophet Salih right now. وَبَوَّأَكُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And He made it possible for you to live on this land. How so? the Qur'an explains, تَتَّخِذُونَ مِن سُهُولِهَا قُصُورًا, on the flatlands, meaning not the mountainous regions, not the hilly regions, on the flatland, you're able to build your houses. Not only your houses, you're able to build your palaces as well. وَتَنْحِتُونَ الْجِبَالَ بُيُوتًا, and you turn the mountains or the caves in the mountains into your houses as well. And what they used to do is that in the summer and also in the spring, if I'm not mistaken, they would live on the flatlands in those houses, and they would farm over there, and they would harvest from the farming, and they would take care of animals over there. The moment autumn and winter would come, they would go up to the mountainous areas and go and live into the houses that they had carved out of the mountains. And they would take their food with them, and they would spend the next 6 months over there. In fact, in the ahadith we're told that once the Prophet of Allah was coming back from one of his battles, and he passed by that particular ruins, and they saw with their own eyes the ruins of the people of Saleh. And he said to them that let us not stay in this place, for this place was punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And today, for example, the archaeologists have spoken about some of these civilizations that came before the Arabian civilization as we know it. And last week I mentioned to you, for example, the Nabateans, and you can go and look them up. They were an advanced civilization for their day and age, and they came before the coming of the Prophet of Allah. فَاذْكُرُوا آلَاءَ اللَّهِ, then remember the blessings of God. وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ, and do not cause corruption on the land. This is a very beautiful point that he mentions to them. He says to them that one of the ways that you can protect yourself from committing sins and disobeying Allah is by remembering the blessings of Allah. And this is something that we can apply into our lives as well. As long as every day we remember that everything that God has given us. You know, one of the things I did at the summer camp, and I think it works for everybody, is I asked them after Isha Salat or after Asr Salat that I want a few of you to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for one of the blessings that He has given you. And by the time they were done making their du'as, they had mentioned many of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they felt satisfied and they felt blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? A person, when he remembers the blessings of God, then he feels embarrassed to disobey Allah. Sometimes we don't disobey God because we fear the fire of hell. Sometimes we don't disobey God because we want to go to Jannah. However, the believers, the true believers, they don't disobey God because they feel embarrassed of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the saying goes, if you want to commit a sin, you can do it. Just find a place where God can't see you and use those tools that God hasn't given you. There are no such tools. And there are no such places. Right? قَالَ الْمَلَأُ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا مِنْ قَوْمِهِ لِلَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. So, from this verse now, it becomes clear that they had a class system in their society. There was the upper and the ruling class, and there was the lower and the working class, those who had been enslaved and those who had been oppressed. So the ruling class were the leaders, and they had the most to lose from Prophet Salih's message. Right? They turned to those who were oppressed, and they started making fun of Prophet Salih. Now who did they turn to? Amongst the oppressed, amongst the working class, there were two groups. There was a group that was a believer in the message of Prophet Salih, and there was a group that did not believe in the message of Prophet Salih. Now those who believed in his message, right? Now one of the reasons why God is mentioning this story, by the way, is because it resembles the story of the Prophet of Allah so closely. It gives a lot of hope. It gave a lot of hope to the believers during the time of the Holy Prophet. Because you find even in Mecca at the time of the Holy Prophet, amongst the slaves and those who were, poor and those who were oppressed, there were two groups of people. There were people like Bilal who believed in the Holy Prophet, and there were others who did not. In any case, during the time of Prophet Salih, they turned to the oppressed people and they say, did you know that Salih is a messenger of God? Like, did you know that Salih claims to be somebody who comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And he's got this crazy idea that God speaks to him, making fun, right? Like, this is almost impossible. What's he talking about? Right? Trying to put them down, trying to embarrass them, to say, would you believe in such a crazy idea? And you find that it happens in this day and age as well. Right? When people want to put your faith down, they will make fun of it, they will mock it, and they'll mock it very confidently as well. I remember once watching a debate, and you can watch it online as well, between Mehdi Hassan, not a debate, it was an interview, between Mehdi Hassan and Richard Dawkins. It's a very interesting one to watch, by the way. So you watch that one, and at some point Richard Dawkins, who is a self-proclaimed atheist, turns to Mehdi Hassan, says to him, "You're a Muslim?" Now he wasn't interviewing him as a Muslim, he was interviewing him as a journalist who works for Al Jazeera. But he says, "You're a Muslim?" He goes, "Yes, I am." "So you believe that your prophet went on a horse that had wings up to heaven on Mi'raj?" Now, can you imagine you're put on public TV where that particular show is going to be shown to millions and millions of people, and now you're being asked that, do you believe that your prophet actually went on this mythological creature that's a horse with with wings, and he went up to heaven like that? Like, how would you respond to that? Okay? You would say, well, there's a difference of opinion amongst the ulama. That's a symbolic way of expressing it. I know there are different views. So to his credit, Mehdi Hassan said, "Well, yes, I do. That's it. I do. I don't need to explain to you." Right? I do. That's it. End of story. Right? And that's how we should be confident about our faith as well. Right? When we believe in something, we say it. And then if that person wants an explanation for it, we give it to him as well. Right? So now, when they came to him and said, "أَتَعْلَمُونَ أَنَّ صَالِحًا مُرْسَلٌ مِّن رَبِّي," do you know that Salih claims to be a messenger from God? They didn't say that, well, when he says messenger, it means that he feels a sense of responsibility, and God talks to him the way he talks to every one of us, and we can all feel the presence of God. No. He said, "Inna bima ursila bihi mu'minun." Yeah, we believe in him. Now what's wrong with that? Right? So what did they do? They responded to them by saying, قَالَ الَّذِينَ اسْتَكْبَرُوا, those who are the leaders in the land, they say to them, "Inna billadhi amantum bihi kafirun." However, we don't believe in what you believe in, we disbelieve in what you believe in, right? And you're going to find that as well. Sometimes when a few people are talking to each other and they want to put your faith down, they will say it very confidently. They will say it as if it's a matter of fact, as if there's no doubt about it, right? Yeah, well, academics will talk to each other. Regardless of how you look at the data, it doesn't prove the existence of God, right? And that's that, done, right? And that's how they were going to their people as well. Well, you believe in it, but you know what? No, we don't believe in it. This doesn't make sense to us. فَعَقَرُوا النَّاقَةَ وَعَتَوْا عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِمْ. And then what did they do? Then they killed the she-camel. How did they kill it? First, they hit at the legs until the camel fell down. They had a way of doing that, right? Even in war, for example, when you were fighting against cavalry or fighting against somebody who's on a camel, you first hit at the legs, the camel goes down, and then you kill the camel or the rider who's on it. They did that, and they killed the camel. وَعَتَوْا عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِمْ. Killing a camel was not a big deal. It was only a big deal because they disobeyed the command of their Lord. Right? That's when it became an issue. وَقَالُوا يَا صَالِحْ. And they said, "Oh Salih, ائتنا بما تعدنا إن كنت من المرسلين." Now bring us the punishment that you had promised us if indeed you are a messenger sent by God. There's a very beautiful hadith over here. The verb used is in the plural form. فَعَقَرُوا النَّاقَةَ. They killed the camel. In the hadith we're told it was one person who killed the camel. He took on the responsibility and he said, "I'm going to go and kill it." Maybe he was strong, he was brave, he was a warrior. He went and killed it. One person did it. What does God say? They all did it. Why? Because he was acting on their behalf. Because they were pleased with what he was doing. Because they were silent and they did not object to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lumped them. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً قَتَلَتْكُمْ وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً ظَلَمَتْكُمْ وَلَعَنَ اللَّهُ أُمَّةً سَمِعَتْ بِذَلِكَ فَرَضِيَتْ بِهِ. They heard about the fact that Imam Hussein was killed, and even though they weren't in Karbala, even though they did not lift the sword, may the curse of Allah be upon them, because in their hearts they were happy with what had happened. Right? And therefore we have to be careful as well. When you see that oppression is happening, if we even can't help those who are oppressed, the least that we should be able to do as believers is to raise our voice of objection. That's it. Huh? فَأَخَذَتْهُمُ الرَّجْفَةُ فَأَصْبَحُوا فِي دَارِهِمْ جَاثِمِينَ. The moment they said that, between that and the punishment of God, there was nothing else. Immediately it came, and the punishment of God overtook them, and the next morning they were dead bodies lying in their house. Nothing more than that. Right? That's how the command of Allah is. Right? When Allah wants, then He can punish somebody in faster than that person can imagine. Now, Salih turns to them. فَتَوَلَّ عَنْهُمْ. He turned away from that community now. He went away from that community. But as he was going away, he also said something to them. وَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ. O my community, لَقَدْ أَبْلَغْتُكُمْ رِسَالَةَ رَبِّي. I conveyed to you the message of my Lord. وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ. And not only that, I admonished you as well. I didn't just come and convey. I said it over and over again. I said it in so many different ways. I continued to say it even when you didn't want to hear it from me. وَنَصَحْتُ لَكُمْ. What can I do? وَلَكِنْ لَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاصِحِينَ. You don't like those people who admonish you. There's a debate amongst the commentators here as to when did he say this. Did he say it before they got the punishment of God, or after they got the punishment of God? Some say that even though it mentions it after the punishment, he said it before the punishment. Why? Because it was supposed to be one last time that he was going to advise them. Some say no, he said it after the punishment. After he saw that they had been punished by God, he turned to them and now he was talking to them. Now you say, why was he talking to them? What's the purpose of talking to people who are dead in their houses now? Well, the scholars say we see this in the seerah of the Ahlul Bayt as well. Our first Imam, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi afdalu salati wa salam,
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
In the battle of Jamal, after the battle was over, he went to the battlefield and there he found the body of Talha and Zubayr. He found the body of Talha. And Talha used to be a companion of the Holy Prophet. He fought bravely for the sake of Islam, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. During the time of the Holy Prophet, the Prophet counted on him. And so the Imam now talked to his dead body. Okay? And the Imam said to his dead body, "O Talha, you have given so many services to Islam. How sad it is that you are not able to protect it for yourself. That you are not able to die in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." And the reason the Imam was talking to him was because he wanted to leave a message and a lesson for those who were around him and those who heard it. And similarly, Prophet Salih may want to leave a message to those who heard him, because remember, there were some people who were saved with him, who heard him giving this message. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from here moves to the next story. I'll just quickly introduce it and we will cover it in detail next week. وَلُوطًا. And now comes the story of Prophet Lut. إِذْ قَالَ لِقَوْمِهِ. When he said to his community, أَتَأْتُونَ الْفَاحِشَةَ. You are now performing or committing an abomination. Something that is so abhorred. Fahisha is something that is openly abhorred, openly an abomination. مَا سَبَقَكُمْ بِهَا مِنْ أَحَدٍ مِنَ الْعَالَمِينَ. No community before you has ever committed such a grievous abomination before you. Meaning what? Meaning there might have been other communities where one or two or three or a few people may have done what the people of Lut were doing, but never as a community as a whole, or finding acceptance in the whole community as a whole to do what they were doing. And what were they doing? إِنَّكُمْ لَتَأْتُونَ الرِّجَالَ. You approach men. So now he is talking to men, the men of the community, that you approach men shahwatan, with your shahwa, with your desire, min dun nisa, instead of approaching women. بَلْ أَنْتُمْ قَوْمٌ مُسْرِفُونَ. Rather, you are a community that exceeds the bounds. Meaning what? Meaning that what Allah has made halal for you is not enough for you. You have to go and get that which Allah has made haram for you. Now, what is the context to it? What was the story to it? And what happened to them later? Inshallah, we will continue with that next week. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.